Hello everyone, Fearfire here. Welcome to my League of Legends Champion Select and Counterpicking guide. I'm going to be focusing mainly on the counterpicking aspect of the guide because most people already know how to assemble a well-balanced team and all that. But I will briefly cover the basics of Champion Select and making sure that your team is well-balanced. So the first thing you want to do in Champion Select is make sure that you have all of the necessary roles covered by someone in your team. For example, you're going to need an AP carry, someone who deals magic damage, an AD carry, someone who deals physical damage, a tank, someone who absorbs damage and has some sort of initiation skill, as the tank will usually be the one initiating team fights, so they'll need some sort of gap closer or CC or something like that. And the support, who is going to be either providing heals for your team or some sort of buffs for your team, especially during team fights. And also someone, the support character, is going to be helping your AD carry sustain in their lane if you're running the typical AD support bot. So some sort of sustain is nice to have on them, like a heal usually, or the ability to harass enemies off of your AD carry bot. So the fifth role is the off tank or tanky DPS, and this person is oftentimes a jungler, meaning they'll be spending most of their time early game in the jungle, giving your team an extra lane with 100% farm and experience. And so this person has a bit different of a role than the other people in team fights, as his job is to, first of all, protect his own carries against assassins or other tanky DPS that might dive in and try to kill his carries, so he'll try to peel them off, usually using some form of CC or maybe a taunt. And secondarily, after that, he should try to run in and deal damage to the enemy's carries, because he could deal more damage than the tank, but he won't die as fast as like a carry or someone, so he could usually get in and do good damage to the enemy carry. And the last step in creating a fully functional and competitive team is to make sure that you choose champions that have some sort of added synergy with each other. There are many champions that fill each of the different roles, and it's important to choose champions that work well together. An example of this would be choosing multiple champions that have area of effect ultimates, so that you could line them up and drop them down on enemy teams in team fights and quickly wreck the enemy. Another example might be choosing someone with a spell shield like Morgana to work on the same team as someone with a channeled ultimate like Katarina or Malzahar, so that they don't get interrupted while channeling their ultimate. So let's first take a look at purple team here in this example. At first glance, they appear to have some pretty good synergy with each other because they all have area of effect abilities, especially Katarina and Kennen. Katarina can start her ultimate, and Kennen can stun people to help keep them from escaping the range of Katarina or from interrupting her ultimate. Meanwhile, Vladimir can lay down his ultimate, which will increase the amount of damage that they all take. Kel and Malphite can also do area of effect damage. The only problem here is that all of their damage, especially all of their AoE damage, is all magical, so they could be easily countered by someone on the other team buying magic resist, or by buying the item Aegis of the Legion, which will buff the magic resist of everyone on their team. Additionally, the other team has a Morgana with a spell shield, which will absorb lots of magic damage, and Jarvan and Xin Zhao can easily interrupt Katarina's ultimate. So what they should have done instead was not taken Kale, and probably not taken Vladimir, or swapped out either Katarina or Kennen for a different carry, an AD carry. Okay, so now I'm going to start to get into actually counterpicking, and while I explain lots of the basics, I will show you footage from a game that I just played. As Malzahar, I was laning against a Morgana, as you can see, and there are a lot of examples of how the picks on each team countered each other. For example, we were able to get a Mumu, but their team countered him by picking Morgana, and at the same time our AD carry Caitlyn was able to get lots of farm, and so she was able to shut down Morgana. And there are other examples, and you'll see. Try to pay attention once team fighting starts, and see how the different characters on each team target each other, and who goes for which character and stuff like that, and you'll start to see how they get countered. Okay, so the point of counterpicking is to give your team yet another advantage. It's something that you do in Champion Select, obviously, and it's really only able to be done when you can see who the enemy is picking, so in draft mode, but that's also when it matters the most. And as long as you already have a well-balanced team and all the roles are filled, then you should be looking additionally to pick someone that will counter someone on the enemy team. I'm going to start by just going over, in general, the types of characters that you should be choosing for each role when going up against a team that is heavily slanted in one direction or another. So let's start with if the enemy team is heavy AD. They have lots of physical damage, maybe multiple AD carries, or just one AP carry, and their jungler and tank is also heavy AD or something like that. Um, if you're up to pick and you need to pick a tank, you're going to want to look for someone that gets some sort of added bonus by building armor, like Malphite or Rammus, and they could also jungle. If you're choosing an AD carry, you need someone that is able to do either more damage than them, like Vayne, someone that could deal lots of damage without having the same amount of items, or someone that is really good in the laning phase, like Caitlyn, someone that could harass them out of lane, or just CS just as well as them, if not better, because AD against AD is pretty boring. It's just passive farm fest, and it's good to have some sort of added advantage, like Caitlyn's range or Vayne's added damage. Even if you're being forced out of the lane or something like that, you can still deal lots of damage. And for the AP carry, what's going to happen when you go up against a heavy AD team is that they're going to be dealing lots of steady damage in team fights, whereas AP carries are usually bursty. AD carries are definitely steady damage. So you need someone that either can survive steady damage, someone like Swain, or someone that heals, or someone that is able to quickly burst down the enemies when they get out of position, like Annie or maybe Veigar. And then for support, you're gonna want someone that can again help keep your team up during the team fight. So someone with they could heal multiple times in a short period. So Sona is an okay pick, but the best pick really is Tark when you're going up against a heavy AD team, because he has the aura that gives extra armor to your team, and he can heal your team a lot, and it will counter their steady damage slowly but surely. Additionally, any type of blind mechanic will counter most AD teams. Okay, and then if they're building heavy AP, which is something that you'll see often in solo queue rank, just because people don't know how to play as many characters, especially in lower ELO, so they will just say, oh, I only know how to play this AP, and someone else will be like, oh, I only play this AP too, so they'll do a double AP, which is one of the more acceptable of the different strategies out there, different team comps. So it's good to be able to know how to counter this, and for tanks, you want someone with a taunt like Shen or Galio, because taunting an AP carry really renders them useless. Taunting an AD carry, you'll still take lots of damage, but taunting an AP carry, obviously not as much. Galio is the best pick to counter APs. If your team needs a tank and you're up to pick Galio. His taunt is great, and the more magic resist he builds, the more ability power he builds. Additionally, someone that can build magic resist easily, like Jarvan 4 or Maokai. Jarvan 4 can easily build Force of Nature because it works really well on him, and Maokai works really well with Banshee's Veil just because he usually starts with the Catalyst. Those type of characters also work well to counter them. And then for your AD carry, you just want someone that has like a long attack range like Caitlyn so that they could survive. Additionally, someone with like a quick escape, like maybe Vayne, who could stealth quickly, is good, because the AP carries will obviously just dive in for the AD carries and try to nuke them down, so you need to be able to stay back at the beginning of the fight and still do damage or get out of sticky situations. And then for AP carries, to counter other AP carries, you could obviously go Kassadin, which is probably the best pick because he is an anti-carry. His silence and his burst damage and his ability to just move in and out of fights allows him to quickly burst down the enemy mage while they can't do anything to him, and then get back out and repeat the process a few seconds later on the other AD or other AP carry. And Malzahar is also a strong pick. Anyone with a silence can really wreck the AP heavy teams. And for support, you're going to want someone like Zillion, who can revive someone if they get nuked down, if they're out of position and the enemy AP carries just nuke them down, he can quickly revive them. Or someone like Soraka, because she buffs your team's magic resist. And finally, against teams that are tanky or have multiple tanky DPS bruisers, the best way to counter them is with percentile damage. So for your tank, someone like Amumu would be really strong, or Jarvan, because he has percentile damage every few seconds, and he also has a slow kiting. These teams will also help you win. For AP, you're going to want someone like Malzahar with percentile damage, or Swain, because he has a high amount of steady damage and a snare that will help you kite. And then for AD, someone like Vayne or Kog'Maw because of their percentile damage. And for support, someone like Sona would be the best because her movement speed buff will allow you to kite them, and additionally she can provide heals quite rapidly in fights, and some good debuffs to keep the enemies from healing too much of their health back and stuff like that. Now I'm just going to list some of the champions that counter other champions, especially the ones that are popular picks. And here I'm just doing a game in draft mode, and I'll try to explain why some of the people on each team are choosing the champions that they choose. I was designated the jungler for this game, so I first picked a jungler, which is something you usually won't see, so kind of ignore that, but I did choose a jungler that counters their first pick. So to start things off, to counter AP carries, the best way to do this is either with a silence or with Kassadin, because Kassadin has a silence, he has burstiness, and he has mobility, the ability to get in and out of fights while dealing damage without getting nuked down. He could jump in, deal a bunch of damage, silence them to keep them from responding, and then get back out. Additionally, his AoE ability gets charges. He's able to use it the more that enemies use abilities, and AP carries obviously use lots of abilities. And then to counter melee DPS people like Yi or Talon or Xin Zhao, exhaust or any type of blind is obviously the most simple. So if you see the enemy team choosing Yi, just make sure someone on your team has an exhaust, or if you're up for AD carry, you might want to choose Teemo so that you could blind their Yi. So here I see that they pick Ashe, and Ashe has slows and is able to kite. So what I need to do is choose someone with a gap closer, an instant gap closer. Nocturne is acceptable, but probably not as good as someone like Xin Zhao. And I also need to be able to keep her from running away. And I also am going to need to be able to initiate. So I choose Xin Zhao because he's the best choice at this point. In team fights, I counter Ashe very hard. As soon as the fight starts, I just jump on her, and she's out of the fight. There's nothing they can do. They can't really stop me. If they blow their CC on me, fine. But then the rest of my team will just tear them apart. If they blow their CC on me, Katarina's just going to start ultimate, and they're all going to die. Alright, next I'm going to go over a few examples of counterpicking. So in this first one, Zillion is countering Garen just because Garen's ultimate will finish someone off at low health, and Zillion can just revive them. Morgana is countering Tryndamere. Alistar, his ability to knock people up and knock people away, counters Xin Zhao and Nocturne's gap closers. And each team has ignites to counter the other team's healing. And then here, Nocturne is kind of being countered by Alistar because Alistar can knock him up and knock him back, but Nocturne does have a spell shield, so he will be able to block some of that and make Alistar waste some of his CC. If Twisted Fate has a stun up, he can counter Warwick to stop Warwick's ultimate. And blue team's strategy is going to be to have Leona initiate and then lay down AoE damage and AoE stuns. And this is countered by the fact that purple team, Renekton has AoE damage and heals AoE, Lux and Caitlyn have long range, and Nocturne can just jump over the whole fight and dive for blue team's carries. And in this last example, Sona is countering Xin Zhao because when Xin initiates or dives in, Sona can just stun him, and Mundo is countering Cho'Gath because he has percentile damage, and because Cho'Gath's true damage won't be too noticeable against someone with a lot of health, and Mundo will be the one laning against Cho'Gath top. And then Nocturne counters Misfortune because he could just dive in and kill her, and kind of Lux and Annie because his spell shield will stop lots of their CC. Additionally, Caitlyn counters Xin Zhao because Caitlyn could just knock herself back and slow Xin Zhao off of her in the process. So for this last part of the guide, I'm going to list a bunch of characters that often give people trouble and the champions that counter them, and I'll put it in the description so you could copy it or save it for yourself so you have something to reference when you're playing. So to start things off, Umumu gets countered by Morgana. Annie can be countered by Kassadin and even Akali and Garen. Fiddlesticks is countered by anyone with a position changer like Gragas or Janna's ult or Alistar's headbutt or something like that. Garen is countered by Gragas, especially because Gragas can sustain against him in the lane. Karthus is countered by Kennen or Morgana, and even Janna because she could ult Karthus away when he starts to come in and try to do a bunch of AoE damage. Morgana can be countered by a well-farmed AD carry. Shaco is countered by Zillion, Mordekaiser, Shen, Amumu. Singed is countered by Janna. Udyr is countered by Kog'Maw and kind of Nidalee, and anyone with a heal is countered by Ignite or the item Executioner's Calling, so someone like Udyr, Sin, Mundo, Vladimir, anything like that. So I hope you enjoyed this guide. I hope you learned a lot. I learned some stuff making it, and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the videos, and yeah, thank you very much for watching.